Before we get into this week's special bonus episode, a word of warning. If you haven't yet watched Moonflower Murders all the way to the end, please stop listening to this podcast right now and watch that series first, as we're about to discuss the ending and reveal the killers. Consider this a blaring spoiler alert. Sufficiently warned? Ready? Okay, here we go. I'm Jace Lacob, and you're listening to Masterpiece Studio. Over the course of Moonflower Murders, two sleuths, editor-turned-amateur detective Susan Ryland and professional but fictional detective Atticus Pund, must contend with 4 murders and 3 killers. The first 2 murders happen in Susan's world. First, that of notorious baddie Frank Paris, which took place 8 years earlier, and then the disappearance of Cecily Traherne, whose body is later found buried in the woods. The other 2 murders take place in Pund's world, within the pages of Alan Conway's novel Atticus Pund Takes the Case. Actress-turned-hotelier Melissa James's murder in episode 1 sets the plot in motion, and later, her husband John Spencer is stabbed with a Turkish dagger from one of her movies. Susan and Pund must work together to figure out the connection between these murders and what hidden clues in Conway's book led to Cecily's death. In the end, justice is served, the guilty punished, and killers are unmasked. Today, we are joined by a cast member who speaks now about their homicidal role in Moonflower Murders. We are joined once again this week by Moonflower Murders star Pippa Bennett-Warner. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Jace. Thank you. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
By the end of Moonflower Murders, Madeleine Kane is revealed to be, if not the killer, then a killer. In this case, Melissa James's husband, John Spencer. What did you make of that twist that the accomplished and devoted detective's assistant, Madeleine, was secretly a killer, one obsessed with actress Melissa James?
I thought it was brilliant. It was just, it's so unexpected. When I was reading it, I had no inclination that it was going to happen. So when it did, I was giggling. I was giggling. No, I think it's genius. I think Anthony making Miss Kane the murderer, one of the murderers, is genius.
She's in the unusual position of being the detective's assistant in an active crime investigation. But she's also the reason Pund is even there in the first place, and then ultimately also a killer for Pund to catch. How much of a challenge was it to track and then conceal Madeleine's true motivations during this?
What we would do is we would do the flashbacks as separate things. So I'd play the sort of truth, if you like, of the scene, and then we'd pick up what was really like her inner monologue. And it was quite difficult to keep remembering to not show that side and to stay fully devoted to and not show it. I couldn't really show anything in my eyes until later on in the season, but she's so clever. That's the thing. Anthony gives her real agency and makes her clever, which I really like.
She flirts so closely with danger, I think, and I think that's one of the reasons I love Madeleine so much.
Yeah.
But there is this really delicate, almost balletic movement to your performance here. As Madeleine, you have to anticipate Pund's needs, but there's this cunning quality to her that you can't tip your hand to too much. We get little glimpses of it, but you have to be so careful not to show her true thing. How do you compartmentalize those aspects of her personality while being true to her whole self?
It's a good question. I think it starts with the writing, and the writing really gave me that. And then I think on top of that, there was a real kind of flexibility isn't the word, but there's this sort of, because she's written the way she's written, and because there is this heightened sense of reality, I knew what the parameters were, and I knew that within those parameters I could just play and make her. I mean, she's a little strange, is Madeleine. I think Pund's very fond of her. I think he's sort of quite sort of like, who is this woman? She's quite bizarre. And I think that's how she gets away with it, because, when I first read it, I don't know, it just, the way she walked came to my head. All the little face stuff that I ended up doing for her just really popped off the page for me. I think she's a little mad. I think maybe Pund knows that that deep down that she's not quite, it's not quite right, but in a really charming way.
In a very charming way. She's not right.
Yeah.
Pund confronts Madeline in episode 6. She was obsessed with Melissa. She hired an actor to play Edgar Schultz. Her plot ends up unraveling completely as he reveals her to be Spencer's killer. She believes Spencer killed Melissa and she takes her vengeance. Was it a crime of passion finding herself alone with Spencer on the stairs, or do you think Madeline always intended to follow Pund to Tolly and dispatch whoever he unmasked as Melissa's killer?
Oh, good question. First, I'd like to say that Edgar Schultz, who's played by Martin, played the original Pumbaa in the original Lion King that I was in.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know. And we worked together on The Smoke, which was a Sky series that ran for one season in 2013, I would say. And then I hadn't really seen him until being reunited again on Moonflower, so like 10 years later. But yeah, he played Pumbaa and I was Little Nala. There's a little fun fact. It was just really just very sweet. And he's, again, just a gorgeous human being and so funny. I think the fact that she even hires an actor, the whole thing is just really, it's really funny. I think she was on a mission. Yeah, I think she wanted to get to the bottom of it. And whoever had killed Melissa James was absolutely not going to see the light of day after Madeline found out about it. I think she was a woman on a mission, and Pund was a way to get there potentially. Yeah, she did what she set out to do, which I think is I admire her focus and her determination.
She has commitment.
Exactly.
There's a moment after she plunges the Turkish dagger into John Spetzer that she steps back and admires her work, taking pleasure in her revenge. What did you make of that moment specifically, the way she revels in this act of vengeance?
Well, the thing about that is, in that beat, do we see the real Madeleine Kane? Like, is that actually who she is? And I think I like that angle. Like, she's actually this horrible murderer who puts this mask on of a sort of quite sweet, odd woman who has clearly no social life and stays up and, writes chapters for her boss and things like that. I definitely enjoyed playing that beat. And I think she is just delighted to have achieved her goal of killing him and getting her avenging Melissa's death, who she's completely besotted by with.
Before this next question, a brief word from our sponsors. Ocean voyages, expeditions, river journeys. Viking is dedicated to bringing travelers closer to the destination, offering a small ship experience and a shore excursion in every port. Learn more at Viking.com. In episode 6, Madeline says to Pund,
"I'm so sorry, Mr. Pund."
Sorry? That you committed a terrible crime? Or that when you killed John Spencer, you had chosen the wrong person?
Well, both, really.
It's clear that Madeline is completely mad, but it's played so delicately here. She just deflates. She's still professional and crisp, but she just deflates. Do you think she knew Pund would catch her in the end?
I think so. I think so. And I feel for her in that moment because she's flying high until he starts, but he started working this out a couple of episodes before, of course. But yeah, I feel for her because I kind of don't want her to get caught because she's so delightful. But I remember reading that and again, just laughing. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be finding her quite so funny, but I did. I found it really funny. And just, I don't know. And then the way that Rebecca and I kind of found that beat of what that beat should be. And it was, I don't know, she just, yeah, she's sort of like, yeah, I know, sorry. And then I think she hands in her resignation immediately afterwards, doesn't she, or something? I think she goes, "I'm going to hand in my resignation," and she's sort of weirdly kind of at peace with it. She's like, of course, kind of thing. I don't know. I find that a bit funny.
You touched on this. I want to drill down a little more to the way that she handles her unmasking, which is so pitch perfect for her character.
I will be giving you my notice, Mr. Pund, with immediate effect.
I accept your resignation.
And then she smiles at him from the car as she's driven away. But there's this innate sadness to Pund here.
Yeah.
What do you ultimately make of their dynamic? What were Madeline's true feelings for Pund in the end?
I think she's devastated that she's let him down. She did what she wanted to do. She was going to do it, and it needed to happen. Somebody had to, a life for a life. But that connection she has with Pund is so lovely and truthful and respectful. And I think I remember that. I remember doing that bit and the little smile. I think he smiles. They smile at each other, don't they? And then she drives in the police car, and you do feel a bit. I remember shooting that and feeling quite sad, and I did feel like I'd let Tim down. Not even Pund, Tim. And so it was. Yeah, I feel for her in that beat, because I feel maybe she hasn't quite thought through what she's done.
Had Melissa James not been killed, do you think Madeleine Kane would still be dutifully typing up Pund's notes in his office every evening?
100%.
I mean, so is this just a case of Madeleine being a moth who drifted too close to the flame of murder? A woman who finally got her wish to, quote, enter the world of Melissa James?
Yes, possibly. Yes. And I wonder, if she was around today, if she was, a real person, she was still in prison or whatever, would she have regretted her choice? She probably would. But like you say, she managed to step into the world of Melissa James, so maybe it's kind of an eye for an eye,
And she, as I said, she moved from custard creams to custody and got to experience this vicarious thrill. But I think she maybe represents all of us watching or reading Agatha Christie-style crime novels. Like, we get too close to this investigation, too close to murder, and maybe we're sort of changed by it. So is she maybe a proxy for those of us who love murder mysteries?
Yes, I think she might be. I mean, I wonder how people will respond to her. If there'll be a sort of kind of understanding. I mean, because I'm assuming that most people won't see it coming. And then when it does happen, will people, I don't know, sympathize with her? I don't know. I'm quite intrigued as to how she goes down in that respect. If people can kind of see why she did it, or if people just, do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think it doesn't help her case that she killed the wrong man.
I know. Bless her.
Pippa Bennett-Warner, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jenny.
With justice served and the criminals behind bars, we can rest easy as we say goodbye to Pund and Susan, for now. Next week, we travel to the quaint town of Marlow, where 3 everyday citizens take it upon themselves to investigate a local murder.
Mrs. Potts, I can't have you interfering. This is a police matter now.
Of course. And I'm sure you'll do an excellent job.
The premiere of the Marlow Murder Club begins Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Masterpiece on PBS. Masterpiece Studio is hosted by me, Jay Slay-Cobb, produced by Jack Pombriant, and edited by Robin Bissett. Alicia Etup is our sound designer. The executive producer for Masterpiece is Suzanne Simpson.